us, what our pastor is teaching right now, we call the rod of iron, which is the teaching of self-defense. We as good, people, we strongly believe in the Second Amendment. People have the right to bear arms, and in God's kingdom, you have to protect that. You have to protect, against evil. So showing the rod of iron, which represents, for our church, is the AR-15, and it represents that you can protect against evil with that rod of iron in a sense.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Nerd Chronicles, with your host, Christian Paul speaking. And finally, y'all, it has been a while, and something has really actually popped to mind. And I was literally watching a news clip on YouTube one time, local news, around the time it's recording, like around a while ago. Basically like a very, very intelligent, smart gentleman who was up in his 40s and 50s out of Brooklyn, who is currently serving a 10-year prison sentence just because he was constructing those guns due to his fascination with guns and everything else, and with the hopes that actually wanted to utilize the guns basically for good, for law enforcement, for federal, state law enforcement, to actually help actually tailor them and mainly improve them. Only, unfortunately, for local law enforcement like the NYPD to hem him up, saying that he was building out those guns, and boom, here comes a 10-year prison sentence. So it got me thinking, it got me being very, very curious on how the whole thing mainly went down. And I did some research on why those laws came to be and why the Second Amendment actually came out. And I understand each state actually acknowledges the Second Amendment for sure, but certain laws, depending on the state's mindset, they'll actually try to circumvent the state's Second Amendment by trying to make sure that those laws are actually very, very thorough and literally carbon proof, and actually very hard and difficult. You want to make sure you get a very, very thorough screen on who gets the gun and who does not. Some of these laws are mainly built so much so that it's actually impossible to get a gun depending on the location that you're at. So I want to actually just dig more further into more so the history with the Second Amendment as to what has this gentleman mainly done, what he could have done better, and what we can all learn from his situation to avoid getting hemmed up like he unfortunately has been hemmed up in regards to this whole scenario. Just to mainly protect yourself legally from craziness like this and from loopholes that could actually try to get you in which a chunk of your freedom is mainly taken away. So let's dig right into the story, ladies and gentlemen.
New Yorkers are flocking to Pennsylvania with cash in hand thanks to a new law regarding the purchase of ammunition. That new law is creating major headaches for sellers in New York, but generating a lot of business for gun shops here. Brianna Malone spoke with gun shop owners in both states and has our story tonight. Brianna.
Jen, the owner of a gun shop near Buffalo, tells me his customers are changing how they purchase ammunition as a result of the new law. SAFE Act requires a lengthy background check to buy bullets in New York State. The law went into effect on September 13th.
Now there's an extra step in there, and we cannot sell the ammunition it's not only until they fill out the background check, but we have to receive a proceed response from the New York State Police.
In addition, retail stores in New York now have to keep a registry of what their customer buys, including serial numbers and how much ammunition they're buying. But that's not all. For every ammunition purchase, the customer has to pay a fee of $2.50.
We certainly do have, more customers that will buy, larger quantities so that they, can spread the fee out.
Hawkins says other customers are telling him they're never buying ammunition in New York State again. He says the new law is frustrating for gun store owners, and one owner in Northeast Pennsylvania agrees.
It's unreasonably difficult and unfair to anyone who wants. If you wanted to buy one small box of 22 shells, you'd have to undergo a background check, which sometimes can be delayed for hours or even days. It's just ridiculous.
Edwards says the influx of New York residents is making it harder for him to keep his inventory in stock.
I talk to my distributors daily, and they've seen a huge impact because they have to forecast inventory that they need for specific times. And when it takes a huge hit like this, an unexpected hit, they're short on inventory and they haven't got it to sell to me.
Hopkins says smaller shops in his area have shut down to avoid dealing with the SAFE Act.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we have this news clip that's coming out of CBS News, CBS 2 News, local news, New York, that basically discusses a very quiet and extremely studious individual. Basically, it's like a young black individual, and I'm going to actually put the race involved into it, because it basically shows, and I'm actually going to bring the race stuff into it in a little bit as to why I've actually explained that point as well. We're going to dig into this whole deep story in regards to this whole situation, so that we figure out what went wrong and what we can do to actually try to get better and actually try to improve when we deal with, and they don't want to build guns, but actually learn how those guns are manufactured, basically learning about bullets and everything else, and then you got to worry about all the other hidden laws that each state mainly has, and unfortunately it can literally vary from state to state to state. Let's see if we're actually trying to get through with this little clip right here, ladies and gentlemen. So let me go and actually just zoom this in here, and then let's get ourselves going.
Now to the story of a quiet, studious man from Brooklyn who's doing hard time upstate. He openly admits to assembling ghost guns at his home, which is illegal, but he says his constitutional rights are being violated. Tonight, our conversation from behind prison walls, beginning with the moment his life was upended. 6 o'clock in the morning, you're lying in bed.
Yeah.
What happens?
I hear a bang, and I see underneath the crack in my door, I see like weapon lights flickering back. I said, ooh.
Hands up. Get out of here right now.
So I said, hello. I'm Dexter Taylor.
My name is Dexter Taylor. Yo, we know your name. Come on.
Why are you looking for me? Because I still thought they had the wrong house. And then they said, yeah, we're here for you.
Police department, search warrant!
April 6, 2022, an elite NYPD unit forces its way into Dexter Taylor's home in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Come on. Keep a gun up. Keep a gun up.
Why are you looking for me?
Maybe it's some rifles you got laying around everywhere.
They got a search warrant for this location?
Yes, sir. I know it's probably real, but can I see it?
It was an hours-long search of Taylor's packed home, found loaded with ghost guns.
Nice to see his rifles. They are dressed to kill.
After a week-long trial earlier this year, Taylor, who's 53, was convicted of second-degree criminal possession of a weapon and other charges. He was sent.
Oh man, where do I start? There are certain states, especially in the major cities, most notably New York State, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts to a point, Maryland, California, basically those types of states, Illinois as well. These types of states are very, very anal when it comes to gun restrictions as well as gun safety laws. New Jersey, for example, if you actually hold a gun and you're unregistered, it can get you years in jail. If you have a number of ammo that's actually hosted up in your house and they don't even have that stuff registered, that could be literally years to decades up in state prison. So you literally have to be up on those laws, and you have to actually thoroughly know the gun laws within those states, see how they work, to make sure you actually circumvent getting finessed by the local law enforcement or local authorities, so that they won't have to hem you up in state jail.
To 10 years for making ghost guns. I met him at Coxsackie Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in upstate New York. In your home are 13 weapons, yes?
Yeah.
13 guns.
That sounds right.
What kind of guns do we have here?
All of them were either pistols or AR style, right? I made a handful of Glock style pistols, and I want to say 8 AR style rifles.
These weapons are in the house?
Yes, sir.
They're in a closet? I saw pictures of them. They looked like my suits in the closet.
Yeah,
they're stored. Right. They're hanging on hangers.
That's right, yeah.
You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Taylor is a self-described nerd and tinkerer. He graduated from Stuyvesant High School, studied biomedical engineering for a time at Johns Hopkins University, and later taught himself how to write code. He says he's been fascinated with guns since he was a child. His goal before the arrest, to develop better weapons systems for the police and military.
Okay. I have something to offer this industry.
Okay.
Guys.
that's great. And there's nothing wrong with actually doing these types of things. But unfortunately, where this gentleman here, where I had pointed where he went wrong, is unfortunately he didn't thoroughly study like the laws up in New York State, and especially in New York City, on actually building guns and like how you actually go and circumvent. What he should have done, he should have hired a lawyer that actually understands criminal law in New York State, especially in New York City, that deals with gun laws, that deals with gun safety, that deals with building guns, so that hopefully he'll be able to give him proper guidance on how to move so that he'll be able to avoid prison time. So he'll be able to literally move properly whenever he actually decides to build guns on the side. He knows which laws actually handle, what they tolerate, what they don't tolerate. Now, if he was in a state that's open carry, right? And there are a lot of states, approximately half of the country, half of the United States, have open carry laws, and they are actually open carry states, and some of them are definitely concealed carry. For example, up in the Northeast, around the Northeast area down to the Midwest, Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is fully open carry, with the exception of the city of Philadelphia, in which it's concealed carry. Delaware is a full-on open carry state. Most people don't even know that, by the way. Most people don't even know about the open carry laws in Pennsylvania either. Most people don't even notice this due to the fact that it's so lumped up in the Northeast megalopolis with New York City, Boston, Hartford, Springfield, right, Albany, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Richmond. You know, most people don't even thoroughly know about the thorough gun, open carry gun laws that they have up in the state of Delaware. And I can confidently tell you this because I was in Delaware for 4 years doing undergraduate studies at the University of Delaware. Right? So Delaware is open carry, for sure. Virginia is an open carry state. West Virginia is definitely an open carry state. Ohio is also an open carry state as well. To actually go through the Northeast at least. And we know about Florida, we know about Georgia, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, all open carry states. So if this gentleman here decided he wanted to move to a state where there's full-on open carry laws with his daughter, that would be given like the best proper school, and they definitely have them. They have some great schools up in the Philadelphia area, up in the burbs. And the suburbs of Philadelphia are open carry as well. He would not be actually getting grilled by law enforcement. He wouldn't be hemmed up. He'd literally be living his life, actually making his daily bread. Everything else, he would have been fine. But unfortunately, if he was living in a state like New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California, Maryland, even Connecticut, or even Massachusetts, very, very strong chance that he would have been hemmed up on some stuff like this based on the ammo regulations, you know, the gun regulations, the types of gun that he has, gun possessions, all these other things, you know. They could have gone on some years for stuff like this. And if you actually try and traverse guns basically from another state, it could be a crazy problem too. And this is where the lawyer actually comes in, especially a criminal defense lawyer, will actually be able to actually properly guide him on literally how to move when dealing with this type of niche. Let's go continue on with this story.
Like the guys who broke down the door of my apartment, right? Spend a lot of time tuning their weapons. They might be able to use a system like I came up with. I wanted to work with these guys.
How do you think you got on their radar?
I know how I got on their radar. ATF has been driving search warrants around the country by going up to parts manufacturers and saying, run those lists for me.
Taylor.
And where he screwed up as well, and what I didn't bring up, is that the guns that he built, he didn't send them off to parts manufacturers to have those guns registered. That's another screw up that he made right there. Because if the lawyer would have told him this, or any gun manufacturer, he could have asked some questions, would actually told him this, he would have been off their radar. That's where he also messed up. They have to have a serial number, and they have to have a manufacturing license. You know, just in case, you know, everything is really part and everything is actually purchased through like a legal manufacturer, and everything's all safe, getting sound, just to make sure that you're a proper gun owner and a proper legal carrying United States citizen. And that's another screw up that he made right there.
had been under surveillance, flagged using his credit card and home address, ordering parts to build weapons. These guns and parts were unlicensed, unregistered, and illegal in New York. Overall, the NYPD says more than 1,000 illegal ghost guns have been recovered since 2022. Did you have a license to carry a gun in New York City?
I still do have a license. It's called the Second Amendment.
But the issue is the Second Amendment, yes, you should have the right to bear arms. As I stated earlier, various states would actually try to circumvent the Second Amendment with try to probably respect the knowledge by actually having you go through thorough various checks and balances, trying to pass various laws just actually make it normal citizen actually tough to actually try to own a gun or even own ammo. You know what I'm saying? They'll pass various laws and various background checks and thorough background checks, at times to make sure, the guns are actually purchased legally and the ammo is definitely purchased legally. So this is a very, very, very cutthroat and a harsh verification process for any New York State resident that's looking to actually acquire a gun or even try to get a concealed carry up in the New York State area, especially in the city of New York, which is actually the toughest place to literally go and get and keep a gun as well as keep ammo. And not only that, they will have to register the ammo and the guns they have in New York City itself, which is a long, gruesome, and pricey process.
Were your weapons registered?
No such registration is.
And he was spot on with this. And registration laws mainly vary from state to state to state. But we'll see what the reporter has to say.
Required.
Okay.
So in other words, I know what you're getting at, but you see what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Is that the law of the land supersedes the law of the state?
Do your guns?
But the issue is, with those Second Amendment rights, when you're dealing with the United States of America, it's still states' rights at the end of the day. Which means those states do have the right to actually refuse to actually follow through, or they could actually try to continue to follow through, because each state has their own individual jurisdiction, have their own individual rights. The federal government leaves those powers mainly to the states. That's basically what the United States is mainly built on. Unfortunately. And we're going to dig much, much further into the Second Amendment literally up into the next clip to actually see how the Second Amendment mainly thoroughly works from state to state to state.
Have serial numbers?
No.
So to the people who say, come on, man, you know the law of New York State, you also know the Constitution, you know both of them, but the law is the law, and you're paying the consequences.
The states get to make their own laws, but none of those laws can contravene the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights.
Didn't fire him, and she never took him out of his house. There's nothing more central to the Second Amendment than the individual right to bear arms in his own home.
Vinu Varghese is Taylor's attorney.
That is the ultimate legal question that's going to go to federal court. We knew we were going to lose the state court. We're going to lose at the mid-level appellate court. We're going to lose it in Albany, in New York State. But then we're going to come right back to Brooklyn, in federal court there.
Constitutional law professor Gloria J. Brown Marshall.
The Second Amendment allows for the right to bear arms, but that is not an unlimited, unrestricted right. The right to bear arms, like every right within the Constitution, has to be balanced out. Balanced out with public safety, balanced out with the rights of others.
Taylor has a 16-year-old daughter. He says missing her is one of the hardest parts about being locked up, and says she is proud of his fight. We watched the body cam video. It ended up very calm. Yeah. Undoing your shoelaces, put your glasses on your face.
Okay. Everyone was calm and respectful. And I played it calmly and respectfully as well.
People that have been convicted of manslaughter, people that have been convicted of molesting children are going to get out earlier than Dexter Taylor, who hasn't harmed anyone.
What do you want ultimately?
I hope that we can compel New York State to abide by the law. Again, the law of the land is clear. I'd like to have my conviction reversed and do what I originally planned, which was to buy some land in New Hampshire somewhere and make a gun lab and go start my second career in the firearms industry.
I wish Mr. Taylor all the best in this fight. I'm not saying he's gonna lose. I can't say what's gonna be the outcome of this. It's just that it's unfortunate he got hemmed up by New York State law enforcement for not being thoroughly aware with the laws that is going on up in New York State, so that he'll be able to really try to move accordingly. Which is a shame. Now, I want to maybe go through a couple more clips in regards to that. The next clip I want to deal with is with the circumvention with like New York State's gun laws, and also the next further clip is going to be around the Second Amendment, how it really works, mainly by the United States of America.
Well, as you know, businesses will try all kinds of gimmicks to lure you in, but can the same principle work for places of worship?
In a story that's all new at 5, WIAT 42 News reporter Al Ratcliffe takes us to one Chilton County church where parishioners are packing heat.
From the road, the Rocky Mountain United Methodist Church looks like any other country church. But one look behind the sanctuary and you'll see the difference. There's a gun range, but it looked nothing like this 18 months ago.
This was all a large kudzu patch. It was a big hole, basically a gully behind the church that had in it snakes, snails, and puppy dog tails.
It actually came into being to help out several church members.
Some elderly women, for example, and some not so elderly women that had guns but didn't know how to use them. And then we just began to kind of morphed from there.
And from that, it's grown into a church ministry.
This is an opportunity for us to reach out to others in the name of Jesus Christ in a setting that is completely unique, even odd by some people's standards. But who's to say that church can't happen right here?
Even though this is a brand new ministry for the Rocky Mountain United Methodist Church, they're already seeing some benefits.
We have people interested in the church that might not be interested normally.
The Jemison Police Department is working with the church, and the city actually donated some of the fencing. In Jemison, Al Ratcliffe of WIAT 42 News, coverage you can count on.
So we are told the Jemison Police Department plans to hold another firearms training course at the church's range sometime in October.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dig a bit further when it comes to New York City's concealed gun laws and how Dexter Taylor ended up getting hemmed up by those laws due to his naivety and due to the whole how they have their whole stuff work, man. Because law enforcement, they're not really here to actually guide to do. They're literally here to literally try to pounce and to get like some naive person up into their jail, so you literally try to make a profit out of it. And we're gonna dig into a snippet or a glimpse of how some of the gun laws mainly work basically through this video clip, literally right here. So let me get myself ready on that, and we are really good to go.
The Supreme Court struck down a century-old law in New York State restricting who could carry a concealed gun. The landmark ruling was seen by Second Amendment supporters as a huge victory, and by some gun control advocates as opening the door to violent chaos on the streets of New York. Special correspondent Christopher Booker reports on what has, and notably what hasn't changed since then.
For 25 years, John DeLoca has owned Seneca's Sporting Range and Gun Store in New York City, a city with some of the strictest gun laws in the entire country.
How hard would you say it is to own a gun in New York City?
Very hard.
For almost all of DeLoca's 4+ decades in the gun business, to carry a concealed firearm in the city, you either had to be a cop or show, quote, proper cause, a provision of a gun control law from 1913.
Proper cause, it was all about money. You had to have a check cashing business, be a gun dealer, be a diamond dealer, a 24-hour gas station.
But in June of 2022, all that changed. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court struck down New York's law, ruling the restriction violated the Second Amendment's right to keep and bear arms.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking.
The reaction from officials like New York Governor Kathy Hochul was immediate.
Today, the Supreme Court is sending us backwards in our efforts to protect families and prevent gun violence. This could place millions of New Yorkers in harm's way.
I said if he has 3, he has 6.
But for DeLoca, who goes by the nickname Johnny Guns, the Supreme Court's decision in Bruin, as the case is known, has meant a huge shift in who can get a concealed carry permit in New York.
It was every floodgates open up.
Including for New Yorkers like Michael Schiavone.
I applied for it recently,
due to the change in the law, and honestly, to take advantage of my constitutional right.
But even after the Supreme Court's decision, getting a concealed carry permit remains a complex and lengthy process. Just 8 days after Bruen, New York State passed the Concealed Carry Improvement Act, maintaining the state's extensive background check, asking for character references to determine good moral character.
And that part right there, that reference to good moral character, depends on the mindset of those lawmakers and also what they deem as like the good mindset of a person, depending on how they see fit. Not how the internal family sees fit or like how evidence is actually mainly shown, but it depends on the mindset of that particular lawmaker. So I actually want to try and point that out. Just like the Supreme Court passed it, notice how the state legislature is actually circumvented by passing another act, to making sure that getting a gun is still difficult to get in New York City especially, but all of New York State. See what I'm saying?
While requiring applicants to attend 18 hours of firearm training, DeLoca, who offers these classes, thinks it's an important safeguard.
I just feel that there's a correlation between stupid people and guns. Even though we put 20 people in the class only, and we have a lawyer, and we safety. You can't stick it in enough with these people. You can't.
Yeah, you got to point up there because there are some mass shooters actually learn how to actually handle guns, and then some moments later they come off, and then boom, here comes the mass shooter.
Okay.
Let's go! Metro Police! On me, on me! We don't know where he is. Metro Police, open the door! Move right. Cover left. Cover left. Go. Hit that stairs. Hit the stairs. Go. Keep pushing. Go. Shots fired. Move. Right. Push the LPV up. Reloading.
Because some people are just literally demented and just sick up in the head. You know what I'm saying? It's not the actual weapon or weaponry that kills people, even though they actually do assist. It's the people that actually mainly choose you based on their mindset. And also note, any suspect or any sicko mass shooter don't even give a damn. They do not give a hoot's ass about any laws that's up in the books. All they gonna come do is kill. And regardless of the laws that they mainly have in the books, they don't even care. And sometimes with like certain law enforcement and like certain mindsets, politicians, they let some of these other people go. You know, some of these people that aren't even black, they'll just let them go my main way. They'll make terroristic threats that literally up in the social media, but they'll actually have like they cops really shit and actually detain them immediately. Just like when black folks mainly make threats when it comes to guns, you know, they get sent to their home right away, and then they detain them and they place the ass up in jail awaiting a trial hearing, right? But you know, if it's like white boy Chad or if it's like white boy Duke, crap may be, you know, then maybe just suck on for a while and they'll just play kid gloves with them and then let them be, and then months later.
Hello, my name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can do a good done. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am. You're all going to die. Can't wait. Today is the day that it all begins. The day of my massacre shall begin. All the kids in school will run in fear and hide. From the wrath of my power, they will know who I am. I am nothing, I am no one. My life is nothing and meaningless. Everything that I hold dear, I let go beyond your half. Every day I see the world ending another day. I live a lone life, live in seclusion and solitude. I hate everyone and everything. With the power of my AR, you will all know who I am. I had enough of being told what to do and when to do. I had enough of telling me that I'm an idiot and a dumbass. But in real life, you're all the dumbass. You're all stupid and brainwashed by these political government programs. You will all see, you will all know who my name is. My love for you, Angie, will never go away. I hope to see you in the afterlife. When one day or another, you will end and we'll all die. Alright, so here's the plan. I'm gonna go take an Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there, I'll go into the school campus, walk up the stairs, load my bags, and get my AR and shoot people down at the main courtyard. Await, and people will die.
You know what I'm saying? It's sickening. It's how certain politicians and law enforcement call certain people, and then when they suck down the heel, we have the problems that we mainly have now.
Sounds like you are in favor of the heavy restrictions that are in place that allow or don't allow someone to get a permit for a gun.
Definitely, without a doubt.
In response to the Bruen decision, New York State also restricted where you can carry a gun even if you have a permit. So-called sensitive locations like bars, the subway, and public spaces like here in Times Square remain gun-free.
Okay.
They said, you know what, if we're going to be required to let people carry guns, we're going to make it so that there's no place they can carry them.
Peter Tillum is an attorney.
The circumventing the law. There we go. I called it early in this episode, in this clip, in this video. I called it right there.
Leading one of the many legal challenges against gun restrictions in New York.
Until this is acknowledged as a constitutional right, I mean acknowledged in their gut, then they're going to keep trying to interfere with people's ability to possess guns. Is there another right that you can think of that you can't exercise until you get permission from the government?
Tillum argues that the restrictions imposed by New York State in the wake of the Bruen decision misses the bigger issue, curbing illegal guns.
The Concealed Carry Improvement Act, the target is licensed gun owners, people who go through the trouble, go through the 18-month period, pay the fee, and are clearly law-abiding citizens, and now we're going to target them with felony convictions if they carry it into the wrong place. So clearly, New York is missing the point.
These efforts to get these guns are going to save lives, they're going to prevent crimes.
Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez says the city has long been battling a steady flow of illegal weapons coming from states with more relaxed gun laws, as evident at a voluntary buyback that collected nearly 100 illegal guns.
70% of the guns recovered in Brooklyn after a crime basically come from 3 or 4 southern states.
70%.
70%, and they continue to come. So these buybacks allow us also to kind of understand, how guns are moving in our city.
After the Bruen ruling, Gonzalez was one of many city leaders who argued the decision would make New York City less safe, calling it, quote, a nightmare for public safety. Do you still feel that way?
I'm still concerned. The density of the city, we're not spread out, we're vertical. You don't want people pulling out a firearm to, start shooting it out because they see a crime in progress.
But the 2 years since Bruen has also coincided with decreases in violent crime, including a 19% decline in murder and a 31% decline in shooting incidents.
I really hope that the Supreme Court understands that states have to be able to regulate this in their own jurisdictions. You know, if we continue to just say anyone can carry, we're going to see an uptick.
Stupid just gets stupider.
Back in Queens, concealed permit holder Michael Schiavone says despite the drop in crime, he's still concerned.
There's tons of guns on the street. You know, we're faced with people having illegal firearms, and they're all over the place. So that puts the citizens in a very bad situation, especially in the subway system and those areas where someone might want to take a firearm. We now cannot do that.
In June, the Supreme Court did rule in another gun case, affirming that an individual who poses a threat can be disarmed.
This one I'll give you.
But attorney Peter Tillum, whose lawsuit is one of more than 450 filed since Bruen, believes the Supreme Court will have to weigh in again.
I don't think we understand the full import of Bruen yet, and it's going to affect every aspect of daily life. And so I think that the contours of the Second Amendment are going to be written more completely in the next 5 to 10 years.
In the meantime, cities like New York are left to navigate the ambiguity that exists between efforts to keep their streets safe and the Second Amendment. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Christopher Booker in New York City.
My goodness. My goodness, yo. This is crazy. Now let's go dig into a clip when it deals with the Second Amendment rights and how they're mainly circumvented and how they're actually practically used all over the United States of America.
About to enter a restaurant where you probably want to make sure to tip well. At Shooter's Grill, open carry has nothing to do with takeout. Almost all the waitresses pack heat, publicly and proudly. They say it makes them safer, and that's apparently been good for business, and probably bad for anyone thinking about dining and dashing. Here's ABC's Clayton Sandell.
Every morning, Lauren Boebert starts the day with some blush, fixes her near-perfect hair, and puts on her sparkly belt. But she is not fully dressed without her bullets and her 9mm semi-automatic. This is the way of life for Lauren, a 27-year-old mother of 4.
Should have back up as soon as we start. Green's got a gun.
Ooh, Green got missed.
Go slower. Ready?
Okay.
Green's got a gun. Pull it out, find the front sight.
Are you a good shot?
Generally.
So when she and her husband opened this restaurant a year ago in their hometown,
how was your meal?
The gun theme seemed totally natural. Lauren took it one step further.
I wanted to start carrying just for my protection. This is my establishment, so I didn't see anything wrong with that.
Thank you, Mr. Benz. So I just wanted to clarify, we had mentioned, it was mentioned on the other side of the aisle, that not everyone who brings a firearm into the Capitol has had training. Well, in order to legally get a firearm into the Capitol, a member of Congress would have had to go through the Washington, D.C. Concealed Carry Weapons Training Course to bring that in legally, which I've done, which many colleagues have done. And I invite you all to come and take the class. You don't have to get the permit. You don't have to shoot a gun, but take the class. See what the laws are here in Washington, D.C. See the statistics. See how reasonable and safe it is to carry a firearm, to possess one. And you know, there's so many things that are being mentioned on the other side of the aisle. January 6th keeps being brought up. First of all, Republicans didn't incite that. I mean, it's horrible rhetoric for you to keep this up. You know, I'm probably one of the few Republicans that wanted to continue with the January 6th committee because I want the truth out to the American people. I'm tired of you guys running and lying about this and continuously creating this false narrative for the American people. But on January 6th, I was following House rules. There's 3 places where members of Congress cannot carry a firearm. One of them is the House floors. And I was abiding by those rules. And when I heard those doors shaking, I didn't know what was on the other side. And it was the first time in many, many years that I have been unprotected. That I was disarmed, not unarmed, disarmed, because I was not allowed to possess my firearm. Capitol Police officers didn't have enough help. Thank God there were members who had their firearms anyway in the House chambers and were helping Capitol Police. And Capitol Police were grateful for their assistance because they were outnumbered significantly. A few months after that, there was a staffer that accidentally brought in a firearm in his bag, ran it through security, and it was minutes, more than 10 minutes, before anyone tracked that staffer down. What if this was somebody with an agenda, with a motive? And then you want us defenseless and not able to protect ourselves? And we don't walk around with Capitol Police officers. Not all of us hired personal security. Most of us like to take that personal responsibility and be our own security when we can. I don't believe that the security of any member here is compromised by having another member of Congress, a highly vetted individual, be able to carry a firearm according to their Second Amendment rights or constitutional rights and defend themselves. But I do want to once again just extend my heartfelt offer to all of you to come and attend a class with me. I host these often so members can obtain their concealed carry weapons permits here in Washington, D.C. Just come and learn on the subject. Hear what our laws are, hear the process of it, and how reasonable it actually is. It's not this big scary object that's just going to fire on its own. There are safety measures imposed on every firearm, whether there's a safety or not. There are still ways to carry firearms that they're not going to discharge. That's just not something they do. It's an inanimate object. So I appreciate the debate. I look forward to talking more about energy and water and public lands and keeping wolves out of Colorado in the future. But thank you for bringing this up. We can have a little bit of fun in the Natural Resources Committee, and I look forward to defeating this amendment, Mr. Huff.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a clip from NBC News that discusses more about the Second Amendment in full detail. And we already know that election season mainly coming up, especially with the presidential election, Congress, and everything else coming out in November at the time of recording. That's around a couple weeks from now. And a lot of people are extremely heated about the topic of gun control and open carry and everything else. So let's dig further up into this video and see what we can actually try to get out of this reporter, given the information.
Guns. It's one of the most divisive issues in America today, and the stakes are incredibly high.
One of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas.
Even though I've lived in New York for 7 years, a place that's pretty hostile toward guns, I actually grew up duck hunting in Arkansas and have owned a gun most of my life. I really do understand both sides of this debate, but here's the interesting thing. We may not even have had a personal right to own a gun until 2008.
Wow.
This is Think Again with me, Andrew Stern, where I take you every step of the way as I dig into compelling, complex, or controversial topics that make us wonder, do we need to think again? As with basically anything that has to do with laws or rights in this country, it all comes down to language. So let's take a look at the Second Amendment.
Manipulation.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. If we set aside the moral issue and just focus on the legal question of whether or not we have a personal right to own a gun, there's really two main things that people disagree on. One, was this first part, commonly called the Militia Clause, designed to limit gun ownership only to people who are actively serving in the militia, which today would be the National Guard? And two, what does keep and bear arms actually mean? Or more specifically, what did it mean in 1791 when the amendment was written? Because that second question has gotten a lot more heated in the last year or so, if you can believe it, because of this weird sounding field of research called corpus linguistics, which we'll get into in a bit. Anyway, while today we might think the Second Amendment protects our personal right to own a gun, a lot of experts would tell you that wasn't the case for most of US history. For basically 200 years, the Second Amendment was commonly understood to link gun ownership to militia service. And that understanding wasn't even really challenged at the Supreme Court until the eve of World War II. In 1939, 2 bank robbers in my home state of Arkansas tried to claim they had a Second Amendment right to own a sawed-off shotgun. A unanimous Supreme Court said, "Nice try. There's no way you can link a sawed-off shotgun to militia service. So the government can make that particular gun illegal if it wants to." So almost 150 years after the Second Amendment was ratified, this ruling kind of confirmed the common understanding of it. The government didn't have to regulate or prohibit firearm ownership, but it could if it wanted to, because the right was pretty well understood to be tied to some sort of militia service.
Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Very, very interesting, ladies and gentlemen.
And this interpretation held for another 50 years or so.
There was no mention of personal self-defense at all in the Constitution, in the Second Amendment. It was basically understood to mean carrying arms in the context of some kind of military service.
So how did we go from a common understanding of the Second Amendment that linked gun ownership to the militia, to where we are today? Because the Supreme Court case that actually changed all of this didn't even happen until 2008. But by the time we got there, most Americans already thought the right was personal, not militia-based.
Wow. And this is where the chaos ensues, ladies and gentlemen.
You can mostly thank the NRA. From the late 1960s to today, the NRA went on the offensive in ads, in speeches, in TV appearances, pushing the narrative that you have a Second Amendment right to own a gun, and the government's trying to take it away from you.
And you know the odd part is, that same NRA, when Philando Castile was unalived, alright, by a police officer, okay, the NRA never came to his defense. And in fact, you know, when you have the Black Panthers actually legally carrying guns for their self-defense, the NRA mainly went against the Black Panther Party and all these other black-led movements, black-led liberation movements. They went against them, and they actually were in full support of California, start toughening up their gun laws and actually making it harder for people to actually literally get a gun literally up in the first place. So that's why we have California having the strict, arguably, the strictest gun laws in the nation because of that. The irony here.
Their goal is to eliminate the Second Amendment and our firearms freedoms so they can eradicate all individual freedoms.
Media is warfare, y'all. Media is warfare.
Alright, so our timeline is all over the place by this point. We have the Constitution, a Supreme Court case in 1939, the NRA from the 60s to today, another court case in 2008. Yet somehow I can't even explain how we ended up with a personal right to own guns without going back to 2003.
And also, NRA has their own lobbyists to actually petition some of the politicians and the judges to make the ruling mainly work out in their favor as well. And this is something to keep an eye on also.
Because that's when these guys decided it was time to take on the militia clause and prove, once and for all, that it did not limit your personal right to own a gun.
The three of us litigated the Heller versus District of Columbia case.
The three being Clark Neily, Alan Gura, and Bob Levy. Bob is the chairman of the most influential libertarian think tank in the country. The fourth guy in that photo is Dick Heller. He was their model case. Heller was a special police officer in Washington, D.C., which meant that he carried a gun for work. But he also wanted to own a handgun at home for what he said was self-defense. But because D.C. had a law on the books that banned all handguns, he wasn't allowed to have one.
D.C. was a particular ripe place to litigate Second Amendment because they had the most draconian gun control regime in the country. And yet they had the highest rate of gun violence in the country.
So, thanks to Bob and his colleagues, the Heller case winds its way to the Supreme Court, and we end up with the first definitive ruling on whether or not we have a personal right to own a gun. The court started with the militia clause.
The militia clause was a prefatory clause to give one of the main reasons to recognize the right to keep and bear arms.
Stephen Holbrook wrote a hugely influential opinion for a bunch of senators and congressmen in the Heller case. He's saying that the militia clause announces one important reason for why people should be allowed to own guns, but it's not the only reason why.
Invariably, if you refer to the right to bear arms at the time of the founding, it refers to an individual right.
That was a pretty big departure from earlier decisions. But that's what Justice Scalia said in his 5-4 majority opinion. After Scalia addressed the militia clause, he took on disagreement number 2. What does keep and bear arms really mean?
We conclude that it means pretty much what it means today, to have and carry weapons.
Scalia got that particular part wrong, that he just blew it in terms of the meaning of bear arms.
Dennis Barron is a leader in the field of corpus linguistics, which I mentioned earlier. All it means is that scholars and researchers gather up tons of sources. I'm talking like every single piece of text written in a given time period. Then they analyze how exactly a term was used and understood in that time period. Now this becomes important because Scalia was an originalist. He said the court can only interpret what the Constitution literally says, and only how voters would have understood that language at the time that it was written.
We argued that bear arms always has a military context. As the historian Gary Wills said, one doesn't bear arms against a rabbit. But in 2008, the Supreme Court said no, bear arms simply means tote a gun. And they're wrong.
Professor Barron's analysis didn't sway the court in 2008, but he says the evidence is actually even more compelling now, because in the last few years, more comprehensive source collections and more powerful computer tools have supercharged his field.
I came up with about 900 individual, unique uses of bear arms, and of those 900, I found 7 that had nothing to do with a military sense, although 6 of them were ambiguous.
That's the argument he made in a current case in front of the Supreme Court, the New York Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruen. It's challenging a law that requires a special application process to own or carry a handgun in New York City, which is almost never granted. Barron's new evidence is unlikely to sway the Supreme Court's 6-3 conservative supermajority, but corpus linguistics has added a new high-tech wrinkle to this 200-year-old debate. Now, like all constitutional rights, the Second Amendment is not unlimited. Scalia said exactly that in Heller. But since Heller became the law of the land, the next step is working through what limits the government is allowed to put on firearms. And if the New York case goes the way most experts think it will become that much harder for cities that want to limit guns to do so.
It all comes down to language. It really does come down to language in this type of case here. Now let me get myself up out of this recording and out of this video, and I'm actually just give you my final take literally up in this next clip. So again, to conclude here, what can we learn from Dexter Taylor, especially with his case in New York State? Number 1, definitely seek an experienced criminal defense attorney in your state where you live, and have him or her teach you or school you about the gun laws up in your state and how they mainly operate and what type of guns to carry and everything else. You need to learn those laws in your state to see like which guns are actually legal, which ammo is definitely legal and everything else, so that you'll be able to have an idea to fully navigate in order to navigate through the language when it comes to your state, and like what you should have and what you should not have, what licenses you get and what licensing you get, what requirements you need to actually deal with, like with gun training and everything else, so you'll be able to actually be more of a legal gun carrying citizen without causing any problems. If you want to do gun engineering or gun building, you don't have to worry about any issues or running issues with law enforcement up in your state, especially federal, especially with the ATF. The automatic trafficking of firearms and weapons, if I'm not mistaken, automatic trafficking of firearms and weapons, I believe that's what the ATF is. Let me try to make sure I actually get the language right. Bear with me one moment as I said, basically tell you what ATF basically stands for. And again, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Basically, when it deals with weapons, that's what they basically mainly have shown when it comes to the ATF. It's basically a federal bureau that lets local and state enforcement know about, the trace of the guns. He makes you always register your guns, especially if you make them. Make sure you get them registered literally up in your state, which is very vital. Otherwise, you literally risk years of freedom. You know what I mean? Being hemmed up in the state plantation somewhere or in the federal plantation somewhere. This is also more important. Your lawyer your criminal lawyer will be able to give you a thorough guidance on how to navigate through these laws, just so that you be able to actually have your fasting with guns, actually owning guns, literally with smooth sight, without causing bare harm when law enforcement, whatever it may be. And they also have like a racial aspect to it, because you've seen like all these white folks coming up by doing open carry, but when black folks try to open carry peacefully, all of a sudden they get necked, they get harassed, they get literally shot at quick. It's a very, very insane story. They actually have to circumvent laws due to black folks open carrying at times, and especially within other gangs in various states as well. That's why you have some of the laws that are actually up in the books within various states, within various gun laws, and who's restricted gun laws and everything else. Why are you seeing the calamity that you have as well? And then you got to factor the NRA also in this equation. Starting back to 2008, which is why we have the calamity we have now. A lot of militias, a lot of white extremist militias doing a lot of open carry up in these open carry states as well. Some that you also have to focus on also, and make sure you always keep your head on the swivel, especially when you open carry, because you could be a prime target by other people that actually got Glocks and guns also. And also, if you don't have a gun, make sure you actually keep your head on the swivel when you're living up in an open carry state. Always keep your surroundings on high alert. Don't try and get yourself too discouraged when walking about with headphones on, because you don't know who's going to be out there. You don't know who's going to be bothering you up in the park or anything that matter. Just make sure you literally stay aware and know who you're dealing with, which is really the most important thing. And I know election season is mainly coming up. I'm not going to discuss about the whole, my take on like the way, it's illegal to have gun and gun control. That's literally not my place. I'm not here for it. I'm mainly just doing more research within the Second Amendment. All I can say with Dexter Taylor's situation, I do wish the best for him. Hopefully things do work out smoothly, but that doesn't mean I support or am against the whole gun control thing, because again, that's not my place up in this video. That's not my place whenever it came by, whenever these types of things. I refuse to discuss these types of political matters, whether it's for or against, literally on this channel. So with that being said, Chris and Paul from the Nerd Chronicles is signing out. Y'all have a good one.